Welcome to the Wednesday pod for the SC Hub. My name is Munster Mash or Rob. I'm your regular host. Apologies for last week. There were some issues at home, but all guns blazing for this week. Joining me tonight is Realm and Mr. Charity, an all SC Hub podcast tonight. Welcome, boys.
G'day.
Thanks for having me on the Wednesday pod for once.
Yes. You're obviously one of the hosts, or at least regular contributors to our Sunday pod. So, yeah, welcome to Wednesday.
Yeah, I love that I chose the week where I scored one of my lowest scores to rock up on the podcast twice. But here we are. I scored a under 1,000 this week, which really, really hurts. But we persevere, and I'm all about the accountability. So what not to learn from me, I guess.
Yep. So I had personally one of my better weeks for the year, but still underwhelming for some of the scores that we've seen out there. I was an 1183, and I think par was probably 1,200 plus for most of the people at the pointy end this year, except for a certain Mr. Realm.
You had an okay round.
Score this week. Well done.
I had an okay round. I snuck in a 1391. All my centre wing pods went huge, like Mulatalo, Tunda, DWZ, Lomax went big, SJ, Hines, KPP, Uto scored, May got the try assist, so everything went my way this week. Got pretty lucky. Finished 83rd in the round, and that got me from 421st to 29th overall.
Yes, very well done. You are absolutely flying this year, so long may it continue. We want to keep you up the pointy end for the rest of the year, ideally. That would be fantastic. So
I've been in this boat before, and it didn't last very long. It did not last long at all. I was coming first after like 4 rounds, and then I ended up like 500th by the end of the year. So yeah, I'm just gonna see if I can maintain this time.
That's about 50,000 spots higher than I've ever finished. So
I've never started with Brooks. That's the difference.
Ouch. It hurts. What's your turn up this week?
Yeah, we'll dive into that. As we all know, Manly is playing the Titans, so we'll dive into the trade chat and everything later, because I think Brooks is one of the most traded out, surprisingly. But anyway, we'll dive into a couple of other, I guess, some housekeeping first before we dive into it. So we'll cover off some of the results from the SC Hub overall group. Number one score for the week was yourself, Realm. So well done.
Thank you.
Funnily enough, the number 2 score for overall was for the SC Hub consensus team. So I'm going to give myself a bit of the pat on the back because I actually managed that. So
it's the first time I've ever seen any consensus team be in any type of ranking. That's pretty crazy.
Yep. So onwards and upwards for the consensus team. So if anyone that is in the Discord is willing to jump in and vote on our trades, let's keep it moving. Like the consensus team for top 1,000. Yes, please.
What's it coming overall at the moment?
So at the moment, I will give me 2 seconds and I will double check because I have
because it would have flown up the rankings last week.
Yes, I know it's top 10K. 8,297 after a slow start. So it's doing better than me.
It's making me feel real good about myself.
No, I will say that the Discord, the members have been voting well with the trades. So, long may it continue for the consensus team. We'll cover the other results. So the other 2 players that are joining you somewhat in the pointy end off the overall rankings realm are Mitch and Scrumbags. They're both at one. Mitch is at 132 and Scrumbags is at 323. So we've got a few guys in the overall group doing really well.
Yeah, they're up at the pointy end for sure. It's a tight battle.
Yeah. Now, joining the yourself and the Hub, the consensus team, was Redland Raiders with Stephen. There was a few guys in and around that 1350 mark this week. So well done to everyone who's done well. Look, I think we're going to see a few big scores as well over the next few rounds with some juicy draws coming up. So, look, for me, I am all over the Panthers at the moment. So, but we'll dive into that. We'll cover some of the NRL news that's also popped up. So, big one coming out today on the topic of the Panthers. James Fisher-Harris signed with the Warriors for next year. That is huge.
Massive.
I was very wide-eyed when I first saw that article pop up on my news feed and sent it to about 7 different inboxes saying, "Oh my God, check this out," with a couple of extra explicitives. But yeah, so very big news. Just incredible when you thought that losing Adam Blake for the Warriors was such a big blow. Can you say it's maybe even someone better to fill that gap? I think better for
maybe not the tries.
Yeah, offensively, it probably hurts them overall, but defensively, like we all know JFH isn't the best on offense, but he captained that New Zealand side to that Pacific Championship 30-0 win, a 3-time premiership winner. Like, he's the leader of that pack, so just his voice in that pack there is going to be huge for them and his defense. Like, that's the part the Warriors have struggled with the most on their run. So yeah, he's going to tighten that up. So as long as they keep SJ healthy, CNK healthy, RTS, Metcalf progressing, like they're going to be still a definite threat next year.
It's a scary team.
Yeah, very much so. The Warriors are eating well at the moment. The other news that we've got is Joey Manu is leaving rugby league at the end of the year to go play Japanese rugby.
Crazy.
What's the over-under? I reckon he's going to be back mid-2025 or start of 2026.
I'm pretty confident he'll be back at some point. Almost.
I reckon he'll be back the week after James Tedesco gets his 17th head knock, and the Roosters need someone to fill in at fullback.
They're sick of running Connor Watson as backup fullback at that point. It's too early. He's gone. Manu's gone. Yeah, they're going to be desperate calling for him.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I think that'll shake up the actual signing market because he would have been on a little bit of coin there at the Roosters. I mean, look, we know about the sombrero, but we'll see what happens in the off-season and for the rest of the year. Now, the other big news that is probably going to really resonate with super coaches around for the rest of the year is New Brown has signed with the Dragons. And on a serious note, the shake-up between the Goz and Harrison Edwards. So for those who haven't seen, Harrison Edwards is going to the Cowboys from the Bulldogs. This will happen pretty much within the next couple of weeks. And then Jack Gazowski, or however the Goz is pronounced,
Gajewski, I think.
So I think this makes sense for both of the players involved.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, all works out.
I'm just not sure why the Bulldogs are allowing a middle to leave. I'm not sure about that one. But
yeah, they're not really using Edwards anyway. They're choosing the likes of Masuli and there's real duds over him regardless. So yeah, I think it'll save a bit of cap space for them just to move him on.
Yeah. So that's sort of the big NRL news that I have seen over the last, I guess, few days. So let's dive into round 7 and what we really want to talk about, which is Supercoach. Let's face it. So the big talking point this week that I have, in my opinion, is Kyle Iro. He's on the bubble. A lot of people are bringing him in. I think he's the most traded in player at the moment.
Yeah, currently 20.5% of people, so 31,000 have him in at the moment. So that'll increase over the weekend.
Yeah, it's a crazy high number. The question I have for you though is he a must?
Charity, you wanna kick that one?
I'm gonna say no. He's not a must. It depends on where you're at with your team, whether you need points or cash gen. If you need cash gen, then that's something to look at. If you don't have other fires that you need to put out, then focus on that. I know a lot of people like myself were with Hammer. So you've got to all of a sudden do something with Hammer. You don't want to trade a Hammer out to an Iro unless you have a really strong CTW, because otherwise you're trading out a gun for a cheapie. It's going to be even harder to bring someone in. So it really depends on your team structure and where you're at. If you have a lot of trades to burn and you don't have any immediate trades that you need to make this week, let's just say you've already got in an Angus Crichton, for example, then yeah, maybe go for it. But for me personally, I'm actually prioritizing bringing in a Tamari Martin over a Kyle Iro. Tamari Martin has a lot more job security. He's got a very similar break even but has more of an opportunity to score more points, particularly, and sorry about this round, but particularly against the Dragons, there's an opportunity for him to, no, of course not. But it'll be interesting because I'm actually going to the Sharks game on that Sunday afternoon, so I could be eating my words from the grandstand very soon, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, left halves against the Dragons. Dragons aren't one of the best defensive teams, obviously. Ben Hunt, not one of the best defenders, but they are conceding only 53.2 points to left halves, not including goal kicking, which for tomorrow night, that's pretty solid. And it just depends what type of Warriors team rocks up, really. Like, they can be really hot and cold. We saw them round one versus the Sharks. They weren't on their game at all. Like, the Sharks, people say the top of the table, but they've also versus the Titans, Dogs, Dragons. Like, they've had some real easy run early, but yeah, if the Warriors that we know who are just fire, they're just on, could spell real trouble for the Dragons' right edge, and tomorrow Martin could run through them for sure. But I don't know if I would say his job security is better than Iro, but if you're getting tomorrow Martin, then you have to be willing to trade him out in 2 to 3 weeks because he's going to have that tough run. He's going to be maxed out. Not traditionally a good Supercoach scorer. He's trying to benefit off a bit of a hot run at the moment. So, yeah, as long as you're prepared to sell him. Whereas Iro, I think he plays around 13. You can hold him all the way through that as well. He's got probably more potential for points long-term, whereas Tamari Martin's just a short-term play. So that's why if it was out of those two, I probably would prefer Iro. But to answer your original question, Iro, not a must. Not a must for me. I'd definitely be targeting the likes of Angus Crichton over Iro.
Yes, we'll definitely dive into Angus because I do rank him higher. I think he should be the number one purchase for this week for most people. But we'll basically I'll dive into something that you've just mentioned there, Realm. Iro does potentially, I don't think he has as good of job security compared to Tamari Martin. So the one thing that I've looked at this week is we can see from like the Sharks and their injuries and things, they've got a few forwards coming back real soon.
Yeah, Finucane and Royce Hunt, I think are the two.
Yeah, they're coming back. So all of a sudden, maybe Talakai's not needed for forward depth. So then the question becomes, who do you play? Do you play Talakai? Do you play Iro? So I wouldn't be surprised if Iro doesn't make it to round 13. I think he's more of a short-term grab rather than long-term.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not really heavily looking at him this week. I understand why most would. He is a good cash grab, even just short term, with the potential for long term security. But yeah, there's every chance Talakai goes to that left center spot, and Iro goes up to 18th man or back to New South Wales Cup like he was at the start of the year. Yeah, there's definitely one thing to watch out because he could be another James Schiller where he makes good money for 2 weeks and then he's gone. Or Talangi, he's played 3 games, now he's on the bench. So really, no one knows. I doubt Fitzy even really knows what he's going to do next week when those guys come back or the next couple of weeks, because it could be a case of switching week in, week out. 1 week Iro's playing left edge, Talakai in the middle. Other weeks he's giving guys rest. Or, I mean, personally, I think Oregon Kafusi could probably do with a run New South Wales Cup. They don't he's just a plotter. So, but who knows what Fitz is going to do? So it's one risk to definitely you have to take on board when getting Iro.
Yeah, I think it's like the Sharks are, despite the good bye schedule, because they do have a really good one, we just don't quite know what Fitz is going to do. It's up in the air. I think I would have loved Kyle Iro to come through in 2 rounds. That would have just been perfect. But we have to deal with it now. I'm probably in the same boat. I don't know if I'm going to be getting him at the moment. But if I do, it'll be probably a downgrade from Talangi. I think he's good if you use it, really good if you're using him in that regard. But yeah, I think it's really team dependent. I mean, we've been saying that all year, haven't we?
Yeah, for sure.
So we've mentioned him there, and who as I think we might all be in agreement with, who I think should be number one trading, and that's Angus Crichton. He looks back to his best.
Yeah,
looks good. He looks very good. I want first of all, I want to say he looks great. He's scoring well, and looks to have locked down that role. However, you've got the likes of Wong, You've got Tupanua that will come back next week. Maybe they put him back down to reserve grade because he just didn't have the work rate there. I should know as an owner that got a 22 and then a 3. And I decided to trade Brown instead of him, so that one hurts. But what happens when all of a sudden they go, you know what, we're going to drop Angus back down because we want to manage his workload and bring Wong back into the team? I'm just always concerned about those kind of things. But you've got an ex-Origin and ex-Australian second rower that's used to be one of the best second rowers in the game. You've got that there. I just don't think he will be dropped, but just to play devil's advocate of just be ready for it in 2 weeks' time. Everyone trying to figure out how to trade him out.
Yeah, I don't really see Crichton getting dropped. What I can see is similar to what Robbo said at the start of the year, where he might switch out his backs every now and then, just give him a break. I don't think he'll ever drop Crichton or go to the bench. He might just, 1 week he's going to play 80, the next week he's going to play 50, 60 minutes, and he'll just alternate with Nat Butcher, whether it's Tupanua, Wong, Egan, Butcher on the bench. He'll be the guy just 1 week he's playing 30 minutes or 20 minutes on the left, 1 week he's playing 30, 20 minutes on the right. Was alternate that between. And I think even with that, Angus Crichton is such a solid buy because even in 50, 60 minutes, he's still going to base a minimum 40. And you're not buying him for like 600K like he's probably should be valued at based on how he's scoring at the moment. Getting him for 450 and then getting the odd 40 to 50 score, but then the odd 60 to 90 score. Like the last 2 weeks alone where he's played 80 minutes, his base and power has been 71 just over the last 2 weeks, and which is enormous. That includes that game when they had 11 men at one period and he was he was pissing down rain. So yeah, there's definitely I'm not seeing too many red flags compared to Iro.
Yeah,
look, we've seen in the past years that Angus can be a keeper, and I would have him in the top 5 second rowers at the moment. There's not a lot that are really standing out. I mean, he's probably about 4th or 5th. There's a few that I do have above, but I think he could be somebody that you could keep to the end, basically. And at a 450, it's a bargain.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, if we somehow get him staying at 80 minutes, like week in, week out, then getting him a 450 is an absolute master stroke. Like, you're going to make 200 grand at him, but probably never sell, so it doesn't even matter. Whereas in the likes of, I'm tossing up about 8 different trade scenarios this week. Angus is in about 6 of them. So if I don't get him in this week, at most he's probably going to be 550 grand next week. If he pumps out another like 70, 80, if he's playing 80 minutes again, I'm happily grabbing him at 550 grand. Like I'll make that switch happily.
Yeah. And I hate to say it as a Storm fan, but look, the right side of the Storm defense has been their Achilles heel for years now. And we've just seen last week. We've just seen what the Bulldogs did to them. So
yeah,
Angus has been playing on the left. So I'm
and with Connor Watson on the right,
fan, but as
Connor Watson is the right half, they're not going to be going right. Like they're going to be hitting that left side with Cleary, Crichton, Tupu. Like that's going to be a big test for that right edge defense for the Storm.
Yeah, while we're talking about edges for the Roosters, I want to bring up Joey Manu. So, look, he's had 2 monster games back-to-back at fullback, but he's back to centre now, and he is on the right-hand side for the Roosters. If we think that would you look at bringing in Joey Manu this week if you had the opportunity to, or probably hold off for a few weeks and hope that price comes down?
Nah. He's a target for me towards that round 13 area, just because he's this week, I think he's got a low BE of something like 8, maybe around 10. But I think he would dip back down towards that 700K mark around that Origin time, maybe even a little bit less, depending on it's not the easiest run with Melbourne this week. Broncos, Warriors, Sharks, Canberra have been playing well. So that's not an easy run going into that bye period. So yeah, I'm happy to sit and wait for him. I think that if I'm able to bring in another centre wing this week, there's probably a fair few I'd have over him just for this interim period.
Yeah, that is something we'll definitely dive into because I have a couple of names that I'd like to throw at you guys later on. So we'll get into that at that point. On the topic, I guess, of the Roosters. They are playing the Storm this week. There's a couple of players that have really stood out in their second row over the last few weeks in Eli Katoa and Sean Bloor. I know Sean Bloor's been on a lot of people's names and lips over the last couple of weeks due to his price. What do you think of him?
Jared, do you want to have a crack at that one?
So I remember talking in our Thursday night team review sessions that we do in the Discord hub. Subtle plug. We spoke about, do we bring in Katoa? And I remember advising saying, look, I'm not actually as big on Katoa, but the draw is pretty tantalizing moving forward. There's opportunity there, so go for it. But if you're eyeing off someone like a Bloor, I think that's a decent buy. The problem now is this week is Joe Chan coming onto the bench. That will eat into the minutes of at least one of them, and you're going to assume that it's going to be Bloor. Bloor's going to make you money. He's looking good. Like the fact that base and power in that first game was 63 or something like that. And then the week after he scores a try, and that pretty much just adds on to that 60 base, which is crazy to think. I like him as a purchase, but just if you're going to do that, get prepared to potentially need to be selling him because his break-even is going to be high. He's going to be sharing that role with someone else. So I would just err on the side of caution. There's better buys, but it's definitely appetizing. I have a friend that started with Sean Bloor and then just didn't trade him out. And that trade is now actually kind of paying off in these last 2 weeks, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think Sean Bloor isn't like if you're debating whether to go Bloor or Gus, it's Gus all day. But if you like in the unlikelihood you already own Gus, or you have the option to go Gus and Bloor, I don't hate Bloor as a buy. Like he does have that great base and power. What Trady said before, he scored that 63 in round 5 against the Broncos. That was in 64 minutes with just a line break, so he had about mid-50s in base power. Against the Dogs last week, like Trady says, well, scored that try, but he's still based and powered about 60, which is huge, and played the 80 minutes. And Bellamy gave him huge raps afterwards. Said that he had that interrupted preseason, so he wasn't too fit. Bellamy tried to bring him off a few times in the game, but he just couldn't because of how Bloor was playing. So to get those type of raps from someone like Craig Bellamy is huge. Chan coming onto the bench, I wouldn't be hugely concerned. I think it's going to be another case like Gus, where some weeks Bloor's going to be on it, playing 80 minutes, going to have huge games that link with Munster. Other weeks where he's maybe not having the best game, he might get pulled off at the 60-minute mark. So he's not going to be a huge, like he's never going to be an 80 nightmare. He's never going to lose a ton of cash. But if you're buying him this week, because he's missing round 9, and I think he's also, he's missing round 13, and I think he's also missing round 19. So 2 of the major buys. I probably would look to sell at round 13 to someone playing maybe in round 13 and 16, something like that.
Yeah, just in relation to, I guess, the rotation and what we're thinking. Now, I obviously following what the Storm and what Bellamy have said during the week, that he did specifically say that they're probably going to bring Joe Chan in to replace Tui Kamikamica, which I think indicates that there's probably going to be middle minutes there, potentially. And we've also seen Bloor do that for the Tigers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, similar to what we've seen in the past with somebody like, say, a Josh Curran, where he plays edge for a bit and then goes into the middle. I think there'll be a bit of that on Thursday night. So wait and see. But, I mean, I'm just glad that Joe Chan's making some money for us.
Me too.
Yeah, about time.
I was patiently holding. Oh, he's got to come back.
Yes. So we'll wait and see. I guess that leads us into the next big talking point for the round. Nathan Cleary has not been named for the Panthers. A dagger to my heart because I still have Nathan Cleary. Unfortunately, anyway, that's
my condolences.
Yes.
Yeah, that's rough.
But it looks like it's more precautionary just to give him that extra week. It's almost certainly back next round. I'm very, very high on the Panthers at the moment. And it's a dagger.
Yeah, Panthers do have a really good run over the next 4 weeks. Like I was looking at a few of their guys and possibly an outside back or something for this week. Like they've got the Tigers in Dubbo, I think, somewhere
Yeah.
in rural New South Wales. Then they got the Cowboys, who aren't great defensively. South, who we all know are bottom of the table. Then the Dogs, so they've got a really good run over the next month. So there is definitely, if Cleary's definitely back next week, which I'm not going to say 100% he is. I think it was Guru who said he's heard possible whispers of him being out even longer, but again, we can't say whether or not that's 100% a fact. But with Panthers having that really good run, if he is back next week, then he'll be pretty much a big pod to have there, because not everyone's going to be able to bring him back straight away. Or if you're in the same predicament as me, you got Hines and SJ. You're not going to sell SJ when he's versing the Titans next week. I think owning him, if you have him now, it's going to be pretty tough to sell unless we hear that he's out for multiple weeks, in which case I would just flip to SJ for this Dragons and Titans matchups. But yeah, that's rough.
So anyway, asking for a friend, would you consider trading out Cleary this week with the uncertainty around him?
I don't know if I'd boost him out, but if you are only doing one trade already, like if you're just going to a Gus or just going to an Iro or something like that, then yeah, I probably would look to go him to an SJ over the next 2 weeks, because SJ hypothetically should get a decent score. He could even match Cleary's price. He's going to break even to 23. So if he's turning up the next 2 weeks, he could even go close to Cleary's price and could just be a straight swap, because Cleary's run up until that origin period is pretty good.
I actually have a similar question to that of, let's say, for example, you have 300, 500K in the bank waiting to buy Cleary. Do you hold off another week and leave that 500K? Or do you say, let's spend it now and then just spend another trade to get Cleary in when he eventually comes back, if it's not next week or the week after?
I think that depends where the money's going to go to. Like, I wouldn't be spending up on a front rower or, just a safe second rower. Like, if you're able to get in one or two really good gun center wings, or even a Gus and a gun center wing, I think that will be worth it, because you should be making enough money and getting enough points to kind of negate Cleary coming back for a week or so and still be able to get Cleary back in enough time. So yeah, I probably would look to make that move if you're able to do something like that. If it's just you don't have enough money to get a gun center wing or someone to move up to a gun center wing, or not able to make some big moves there with that money, probably would just sit.
Yeah, for me, it also depends a bit on who your backup halfback is. Like, say, let's assume that you've got Nico and one other. Like, if you've still got somebody like, say, a Hutch, I probably would maybe look to go to maybe even somebody like an SJ then this week and just spend some of that, because I don't think you really sort of got to figure out, how do you get, if you have Cleary, if you're going to bring him in a few weeks, how do you get there? So if you can go, like, say, like an in-between, like an SJ, as we've said, could match Cleary price-wise in a few weeks, that could be a really good move and sort of, I guess, kind of offset you spending the money.
Yeah. Hutch is tough because you also have that flexibility with your center wing. So you could just wait it out and then move on a gun center wing. Like, if you've got Lesniak or Mulatalo or something like that, or even Val Holmes, who comes into a tough run. I think he's got Penrith next week. Might be a bit of a pod move, but if Cleary's back, you could make that switch and then maybe look to get someone else back down the line. But Hutch does offer that flexibility, so it would be tough. I don't know if I'd be, unless you've got that 300, 400, 500K sitting there, like Charity said, and you could go him straight up to an SJ. I think maybe just sitting with those center wings for now and then moving one on when Cleary's back.
Yeah. I think that's sort of, I guess, the really key thing overall. It doesn't really matter on your position. It's you've got to have a plan to get him back in. Like, you can't, I think people that are kind of flying by the seat of their pants and just going, I'll just trade a gun out. Like, it doesn't always work that way. And we saw with Hines last year, the people that didn't get him in straight away, you could be missing out on that 180. It's just what these guys have the ability to do. So I think, it's, unless you're really strong on going, look, I need to wait and see what he's doing after that, because it was a hamstring. Like, unless you want to wait and see, I think you have to have at least a plan to get him back in.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Even if it's like planning trades to the exact detail, works about 5% of the time.
Yeah.
Just having like a rough guide of like, oh yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice this player to get the cash. Like, just not detailing it to the exact point, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, your plan could be trading out a Lomax when they have their buy coming up, or just before the buy. But what if he gets knocked out in the weekend? Like, you never know what's going to happen. So prepare for unpredictability.
Yeah. But if it's like, okay, I'm just going to trade out a center gun, and I don't know who yet, but it'll be someone. I think that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Now, we have talked about some of these, I guess, beyond Cleary, I guess, the Panthers have got a great run, and I am eyeing up outside backs. I have seen a lot of people talk about trading out Taylor May. I think that's lunacy at the moment. Like, with their run, he could go 80, 80, 80. It's very, very possible.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I sold him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I was in the position to own now, like, because I'm a Bostock owner as well, and I know a lot of people still own Bostock, and that have both of them there, I probably would look to sell someone like Bostock over a May, just because, like you said, May has that incredible run coming up. So, yeah, all that potential for him to score is there. If he's going to score anytime through the year, it's probably over the next 4 weeks. And he's not really going to lose. Like, his break even 62, he's not going to lose a ton more money. He's already shown like what his floor is. He's probably at his floor over now the next week if there's no attack. So yeah, it's probably a hold for now. I wouldn't be boosting him to Iro or something like that if that's what people are debating.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm actually looking at is, because I don't have Taylor May, I did trade him out as well a couple of weeks ago. I'm actually considering a flyer on someone like a Brian To'o or a Taruva. I think that's a nice roll of the dice as a potential pod move with some of these sort of outside backs looking like they've got juicy runs coming up.
Yeah, I don't hate that considering their draw. Like, there could be some massive attack in that, especially with Cleary coming back. If you get into Taruva on that right wing, or able to afford like a Tungo, that could be massive as well.
Yeah.
I think as well with Taruva fighting for a contract potentially with the Dragons. He may be going out there trying to impress, so that may be a good option. I can't bring myself to pay that much for Taruva when I remember paying $200K for him. It just kind of hurts a little bit on the inside. But I think a really good run coming up. You've got to look at those outside backs where if Panthers can finally get together their attack in a more, direct approach. I've hated their drop under plays that they've been doing, which have been either halting the attack of those centers that we've seen. Tungo's scored really high against back rowers when he's been going up against them, but other than that, he hasn't scored as well as we know he can. And that's what I've observed. It's got to do with how the Panthers are playing this year. So if they can finally crack what they've been doing there and the halves can set them up properly, I think we're in for some big scores over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Even I think if you want to take a flyer at fullback, I think somebody like a Edwards is not the worst shout either. He's in almost career best form.
In goal kicking while Cleary's out as well. And that's pretty huge. And he always goes big whenever a Luai or Cleary's out. So that's why he's so good over the bye period. I remember in 2022, he helped me massively shoot up the ranks because I bought him as a pod during that bye period, and he averaged like 90 over that time. So definitely one to keep an eye on. And I think I mentioned it preseason as well. Like, there's a chance that he was goal kicking, because I remember he goal kicked in juniors, and thank God he was kicking over the likes of Brad Schneider. So definitely want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think with Edwards, what's really fascinating is I've got a friend who's very, very new to Supercoach, so I help her with Supercoach. She loves Dylan Edwards. She's a Panthers supporter. She has Edwards in her team and doesn't trade him out, just leaves him in the team. So I've had a very unique run of watching what Edwards does and how Edwards scores Supercoach-wise. And it's just crazy to think how consistent he is in terms of just being a good performer for you on a Supercoach team. He just flies under the radar because he doesn't have those massive games, although this year he has. I think he's had 3 scores over 100 this year or something like that.
Yeah, he's had 3 scores over 110. And last year as well, he did score 4 tries in a game, got like a 160.
Yeah, it's just they come and everyone goes, oh, yeah, but that's a one-off. He scores like 40 every now and again. But those 40 scores come like once every like maybe 10, 15 games. And the rest of the time, he's just scoring a 60 or a 70. And if you want to go for that safe play, you don't want to risk it with like a Walsh who can score 120 but can also score 20. If you want to just go with a consistent fullback, with the Panthers run and the fact that Cleary is unsure of when he's going to come back, with that goal kicking, he almost becomes like do you have this in as a must buy? Like it's not for me, but it's like if you want to play a safer game, that's actually a really good option for you.
I don't know I wouldn't say he's in the must buy category, but he's definitely in the conversation.
If you want a safe game.
Yeah, like for example, myself, I've got Drinky and Pappy at the moment as my fullbacks. I'm looking to do a little bit of fullback roulette and moving out Drinky just because he got the Sharks this week. I've been pretty good against fullbacks this year, and it's in Sydney. Then he's got Penrith next week, and we all know what they're like defensively. Turbo, like he's probably my number one target, and he's got Gold Coast this week, then Para next week at 4 Pines. 4 Pines, Manly can dust anyone 40-0. But then, you got the likes of Dylan Edwards, who I've looked at over the next. He's got a great run over the next 4 weeks and could go massive. The thing that worried me about that was if Cleary's back, then he just stops seeing ball. He obviously stops goal kicking. That's the thing I'm kind of hesitating with him, but he's a huge pod. Another one I looked at for the fullback there is CNK. He's averaged about 90 with just like basically next to no attack. So he's the other one I'd definitely throw into that conversation there for fullback. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of options around and all with really good runs, annoyingly. Like we can't just have the one there.
Yeah. In the chat, we do have a bit of Walsh hurt. So look, sorry to hear that. But I think hold strong with Reece Walsh and he will reward you, I think.
Yeah. My mate last week, I think fan of the show, Kyle, or known as Damien Cooked in the hub, he bought in Walsh and captained him last week.
Oh, that's got to hurt. But
that was a rough
look,
trial.
as I said, I would back Walsh and I think he will reward owners sooner rather than later. Now, we talked about some backs with good draws. The other one that I'm eyeing off big time, and I know a few other super coaches is DWZ. Like the Warriors have got a good run coming up, and we've seen that from last year and starting into this year that he's starting to play really, really well, warming into the season. How do you guys view DWZ?
Well, I'm an owner, so I bought him in a couple of rounds ago. So, yeah, I'm a big fan, and he's got some great games. So he's coming up against Dragons this week, who have actually been pretty good against right wingers so far. But with that shuffle with Lomax going to the centres, Tui Pelotu coming in, I think Tui Pelotu is probably going to actually go to the left wing because that's where he plays normally, and Rava back to the right wing. Just for this week, and Tui Pelotu is about as good at defending in the NRL as I am. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident with DWZ this week in that right edge. And then the week after, he's got the Gold Coast, who are the second best team for right wingers to go up against. They've conceded one game under 60 so far to a right winger. So, yeah, it's going to be a good couple of weeks owning him.
Yeah, I think that's if you had the choice, would you be aiming for a CTW gun or would you go for, as we've discussed earlier, an Iro? Like if you were looking, say you've got a May and you've got enough money to either go up or you could go down, which way do you think you would go?
I think that would depend on your team value. Like for me, myself, that's kind of the predicament I'm in this week. Like I've got really good team value. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I do have the option to go somewhere like a Gus or Iro, or I can go up to a gun. At the moment, I'm leaning a gun because now I'm like, my team's kind of set up. I've got good depth. I've got good value. I've struck pretty good with my cheapies and my starters early on. So now I'm going for points. But if you're so far, like you can check your team value against other people in your leagues. And if you're kind of on the lower end of that or mid end, maybe you just want another boost, then I'd probably look to go towards like an Iro. I think it just depends on how your team's sitting at the moment.
Yeah, I remember looking at your team value realm, and out of the top 30 or 50, whatever it is, you're the second highest team value there. So
I think
you don't need cash gen.
One higher than me.
Yeah. So yeah, you're not in a position where you can talk about like, oh, should we get like cash gen or should we get like I'm in the position where I have an under 13 million squad team value. So for me, it's very much looking at how do I get that extra cash so that I can build it up.
Yeah.
But like you said, do you go up? Do you go down? It does depend on your team value. I think for me, do you want to look at it as how do I get quick wins now with the cash gen, or how do I build up my squad with the people that I'm going to bring into my team and hold into my team? So that's what I would weigh up is if you bring DWZ into your team, go, does my team look better like this? Do I feel more confident moving forward? And am I going to have to make less trades moving forward? Or do you look at your team with Iro and go, oh, look at my break evens. I'm going to be making a lot of cash so that I can make those moves when the time comes, maybe during that origin period or whenever. So
yeah, and with that money that you're making, if you're going Iro, for example, like you're going like Bostock or May, who are 400 to 500 grand, going down to you've banked 200 to 300K there. Don't just have it there for no reason. Like do that trade with the purpose of using it next week or on a second trade this week as well. Like don't just have it for the sake of having it. Like have it like, oh yeah, this way next week I'm able to go a Hutcho to Cleary or something like that. So have it with a goal in mind.
Yeah. See, I'm with the way that basically that CTW is going this year. It's probably the best year that we've had across the board where they're just scoring consistently well. So in that sense, I would lean, if you've got the money already to go up, I would probably go up rather than go down to an Iro. I would skip him. There's going to be other ways to make money coming up. And we know that there's going to be a few guns that are going to be bottoming out soon. So we can see here one of the names is Dom Young. He will be he will be bottoming out in in a few weeks. So you could very easily maybe jump off somebody like a Val who's having a tougher run, maybe bank 100, 150K by going to a Young who's in my opinion, I think will still score really, really well for the rest of the year and be one of the better CTW. But then you're making that little bit of money that you might have missed out from downgrading to Iro now. So I think that there's definitely opportunities coming up soon. There are a few players that are bottoming out. So you've got other names are things like a Nakora, who's had a bit of a slow start, will be bottoming out in 2 to 3 rounds. There's a couple of other players that are in that same category. So I would have a look to see if there's any of those players you're looking to grab. You might find, stuff coming in. So from that, we have hinted at it. We'll cover it a little bit because I do want to. It'll start to be on people's minds in the next round or two. Buy rounds. They're around the corner. Like I know personally that I am an over planner when it comes to these things. So, how are you guys looking at the buys or thinking about the buys so far?
I'm too busy being a firefighter for my team. Yeah, I'm having to put out fires left, right, and center in my team. I can't be thinking about when the buys are coming up. But no, I do think about it, right? So with the Bulldogs buy coming up soon, I am thinking about, okay, do I trade in Bronson Jerry? No, the job security, plus the fact that the buy's coming up. I've got Max King, Curran, and Salmon in my team. So when that comes around, that's going to be an issue. I think looking towards this is when I start to plan things out, right? So do I sell Dom Young that I've got in my team? I know that I have 3 weeks to make that decision because I can make it next week when he's coming back. I can make whether I get rid of him or not. But if I hold him, I know that I'm holding him during that origin period.
Yeah.
So that's when I make those decisions. If you're looking at a player as a cash gen for the next couple of weeks, it's just, do they have a buy coming up? Great. They don't. They've got a 5-week period with no buy. I can bring them in for that. But when you're looking at, all right, I'm going to bring this player in to be a keeper, you've got to then think about origin. You've got to think about those buys that are coming up. And particularly in those, not the week 13, but the week 14, where you have to field a 17, but 3 teams are out. That's what you've got to start thinking about when you're making these longer term trades now.
Yeah. No, I think you've absolutely nailed it there. I think with the way that the buys are looking so far, round 13, a lot of the guns that you probably want, a lot of people already have them. So, for example, somebody like a Mulatalo who's killing it, you're not like a lot of people already have Mulatalo. A lot of people, somebody like a Nico Hines, who I don't think will be named for Origin, a lot of people already have him. There's not a lot of guns that I think people don't have. So
You just named a couple of people I don't have.
But I'm trying to generalize here.
Yeah, I get you.
When you're looking at players like what the Raiders have, like they've got like Timoko, Joe Tarpany, they're not heavily owned guys. No one's going to own really any Rabbitohs players, stuff like that. Getting them to that buy period, it's someone who's going to be safe for you and will get you points at the same time, as well as being a pod. So if you can find players like that, Jermaine Azarko, another one, like I think another big thing with buy period, and I'll just say I only started my buy planning today. Like I literally just did up a quick schedule on Excel and I've only been looking at it and kind of doing my own strength of schedule. But yeah, looking at the two teams, the Dolphins and the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs play one major buy in round 19 and have their own singular buy in round 15. And the Dolphins as well, they have the mini buy in round 14 and then have their own singular buy in round 18. I think those are two teams that are really good to target coming up to that because they play, like Dolphins play all three major buys and only play one of the mini buys. The Bulldogs play the last major buy and have their own singular one. So I think they're really good teams to target for that period because they're going to be playing all like the really important rounds, really.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, Rom. The way I've looked at the buys is not for like round who's going to play round 13. I'm looking at it as a 6 or 7 week period.
Yeah.
So there's a few players that I'm not going to go for that I think. So someone like say a James Tedesco will probably, if he gets picked as New South Wales fullback, which at the moment we'll assume that he will, he'll miss a few games because he'll be out for 13. The Roosters are on the bye on round 14, and then through that. So I'd be looking at more players that are going to get affected because they're getting picked for Origin rather than the ones that aren't. And as I said, I'm looking at it as a large time frame rather than...
Yeah, you're looking at it from round 13 to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even a few teams in that only have one bye. So the Knights only have the bye in round 16. And the Tigers only have that buy in round 13. So if you're, I think there's a chance that Utoi Kamanu gets picked for Origin, but if you've got an Isaiah Papali'i, something, or players like that, who not many are going to own the likes of John Bateman, but if you've got a gun in that team who you know is not going to be picked for Origin, you hold him to the 13 buy because he's playing 14, 16, 17, 19, 20, all the major mini buys. And likewise with the Knights, like if you have any Knights, you're not selling at round 16 when they have that one buy. If you've got a Kaipius Paul, a Marju, because he's only missing that one game in that 7 week period. So you're holding through that for sure.
Yeah. He's actually somebody I will be targeting. He's one of the big names on my list was Greg Marju, because I think he'll just be invaluable, like on something like around 14 when Origin players might be rested, not scoring as high. If you can get somebody that's just almost going to base like 60 with his base and power, then I think that's just so invaluable week to week.
Yeah, he'll be massive over that period for sure.
Yeah. So, look, I think that just about wraps us up for strategy chat for this week. So, captains and vice captains, who are you guys looking at? I'm at the moment probably going to put the captaincy on Nico Hines. I think he's a really good shout this week at Shark Park.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I did have a look at him as a potential captaincy option as well. I think that's going to depend on my trades, though. So, like I said before, I've got like 8 different trade scenarios that I don't really know which one I'm leaning. But the one that is probably, I'm not going to say it's set in stone, but the fullback that I'm probably switching Drinky out to at the moment is Turbo. And if I'm, that's what I'm most likely to go to. If I do go Turbo, he's going to be my captain this week.
I think he'll be number one captain for all,
for sure.
He'll be number one across the board, I think.
Wait, you mean not Luke Brooks? What?
No, probably not this week. Yeah,
No.
left half against the Titans don't necessarily go that well. They're actually like the fourth or fifth best at defending left halves.
All right.
That's
Let me
because they
just
haven't played
change
Luke
that
Brooks
real
yet.
quick. Yeah, that's
They
true.
haven't played
That's
Luke
true.
Brooks yet.
Yeah, last week was actually let me pull it up here. The Titans. Yeah, last week was the first time they've conceded over 60 to a left half, and that was Ethan Strange.
I mean, it's Ethan Strange. Come on, Supercoach Gun.
That's it.
I'm playing around with a couple of different options. I just don't know which order to do it in.
Yeah.
I am looking at the likes of a very, very pod play with a like VC on Tamari Martin or like a Roger.
Yeah,
I
don't
don't
hate
want to
that.
risk. I don't want to risk the Roger one. So I'm looking at the VC on Tamari Martin. If not, VC on Garrick. I think Garrick with goal kicking. I'm pretty sure the weather is good up on the Gold Coast.
I think there's potential for a couple of showers, but nothing crazy. Nothing.
I was on the Gold Coast for about a week and a half, and every single day it said it was going to rain, and it was sunny every single day except for the last day. So I don't trust the weather up there. But look, if it's a hot day, it's an afternoon game. You've got a fast track that normally means a lot of points. So I think with a goal kicking CTW against the Titans who haven't had a win yet is something that I'm considering. I do have a little bit of a sense of an upset against the Titans, but I'm still going to be tipping the Sea Eagles. But it's just something that's there that's stopping me from doing it. Right now I have the C on Ponga, but I'm not confident with it. Ponga against the Dogs. Last time he played, he scored, what was it, 160 or something like that?
No, I think that was the last year he played 2 games against them. That first one was when they started that mammoth run. But that last game, I think he didn't score huge. I think he got like an 80 in that last game against them. But the Dogs this year, there's a reason I'll be a bit hesitant because Ponga was another one that I've tempted to trade in. But I'd be very, very surprised if he's goal kicking this week just because that hip injury happened. Not that it happened, but it definitely aggravated a lot when he was going through that kicking motion. So I don't think he's going to be ruled out, anything like that, but I'd be very, very surprised if he's goal kicking. I think Barry Tui said that as well. And so far, the Dogs have been pretty good against fullbacks. Like they've only let in 1 ton so far. Now, they haven't versed really many of pedigree. Like they haven't come up against any huge scoring fullbacks so far, but even to keep fullbacks to a 62.2 average, that's on the better half. Compared to even Manly themselves or Newcastle themselves, Manly let in 86.8 so far to fullbacks without goal kicking. Newcastle 78.3. But the Gold Coast is the one I'm definitely targeting there. They concede 90.4 to fullback without goal kicking. That includes 3 tons. The 2 games I've played at Seabus this year, they conceded the tons to fullbacks. And just to touch on Garrick as well, he's one I've also looked at as a potential trade in this week. That right center against the Gold Coast is a huge weak spot. They're the second highest points conceded to this so far for that position behind Para. And Garrick also has Para next week as well. So, yeah, I really like him as a potential trade-in option and vice captaincy this week. So, yeah, I like that. And I didn't mention my vice captain as well. Sorry, I'm going to be going SJ if I'm going turbo captain.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
If I had SJ, that would be.
Yeah. So I think if I bring in DWZ, I think he'll be my vice captain. I think that's where I'm leaning at the moment.
I like it.
So with that, I think that pretty much does us for the week. So thank you very much for joining. With that, look, we've talked about it a little bit here. If you're not in the Discord, jump in. There's such good chat in there. Can help you with your trades. You can get involved with helping the consensus team. Keep it up there. The links will be in the descriptions for these videos. So jump in. Absolutely love talking Supercoach. I'm pretty sure we all do. So, thank you again for joining in. Mr. Charity, you'll be back on Sunday.
Correct.
Where we'll see
I'll also be in the Thursday night team reviews, which are getting a little bit of traction right now, which is good. We have pretty much just people throw their teams in and just go, I'm thinking about doing this play. What do you think? And it's right before we finish up for that Thursday kickoff It's really beneficial. A lot of people are really finding a lot of value out of it because essentially it's just a sounding board. I'm no expert like Realm. I'm just a modest super coach player that's ranked 50,000th because of my terrible week last week. Just there bouncing ideas off people and getting sort of just second thoughts, confirming it, but also people sharing their ideas on what's like a different play that they could do. So jump in and be a part of it. But yeah, I will be on the Sunday night podcast talking about how Luke Brooks turned up, and I told you I should have captained him. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Alrighty. So join us again on Sunday, jump in the Discord, and we will see you soon.